Okay, we're weaving our stuffed creature part 3, and we've got our warp threads strung on our loom set up, and we've started weaving on the weft. Now we're trying to figure out, I'm out of yarn, what do I do now? So you don't, if I continued to weave this, I wouldn't have much to tie on to the new yarn. And especially when you're new to knots, you want to leave a nice length to work with so you're not getting frustrated trying to tie with teeny little amounts of yarn. So, you know, do yourself a favor and leave a nice, good long piece about like this to tie on your next piece too. So I went and got another arm span of yarn. I'm not using a whole ball or a really long piece that'll get all tangled, because I know I can always tie on more, and I like to change colors and things like that. So now I want to get this off the needle, so I'm just going to cut it off and get it off my needle, and you could always untie it, but I think it's quicker to just cut it away. And now I have my nice piece of length that I can tie to my new piece. Now, the way I like to teach kids this, you know, as you're learning these knots, you need little systems in place to think about what you're doing. So what I always say is, you know, bring this out straight from the loom, your last yarn that you were using that you just cut the needle off of, and then bring your new one and lay it over like a T. It makes a T. And the bottom of the T comes towards your belly. The top of the T is up towards the top of the loom. So now what we want to do is we want to bring the top of the T down towards the loom. So we're coming down towards the loom, and we go under our last yarn, which is green in this case. So I went under it, and then I hold the end of my old yarn and just kind of pull my new yarn up on the loom. Okay, so we just came down towards the loom and pulled it up on the loom. Then I take both my ends and I just cross them over to the side of the loom. I just drop them and get myself oriented as to what I've got going here. I have an X and an O now, and so I know how to do X and O knots. So I can take my top yarn, this time being green, and go under the blue-white yarn and come through the O. And then I'll take both my ends and just pull those down. And I like to grab all the 4 little sides and really make sure my knot is good and tight. And there we have it. We've got more yarn tied on. Then we will trim that down a little bit, not too close to the knot. Again, remember, we'll be pushing our knots in to the other side of the creature that doesn't show. So we want to leave a little so they don't come untied, or if they do, it's easier to get them tied back together. So don't trim those knots too close. Now I have to get my yarn, my new yarn, onto my darning needle, and you can see this is a really fuzzy yarn, really hard to push through. So again, my strip is so great for that. I just lay my yarn in the middle of the strip, fold it in half. I like to kind of crease that folded edge. I use my pincher, and push it through the eye of the needle, that folded edge side, and I pull all the way through. And again, now I'm on the needle. I lay my needle down and I find a little hill. I like it to point away from me. And I get my little hill and I just cross over and make an X and L. And I pull the top yarn through the bottom and pull down. And I'm going to do that again because I had problems in the last video with it coming off the needle. So I want 2 little knots just to really keep it tight on the needle. Again, I have my X and my O. Top yarn goes under the bottom yarn and comes through the O and pulls down. So now I'm good and needled up, and I'm tied on to my last piece of weft thread or green yarn. Not using the vocabulary there, right? So here I was finishing on this long side. So now I just keep weaving. I turn it over and I go ahead and look where I was on my last line. I gotta know. I was over, so I got to start under. And I just keep doing what I've been doing, weaving every other one opposite what it was before. And I pull all the way through till it hooks on, and my knots will come through, and again, those won't show. And you can see I'm kind of squishing the yarn down towards the bottom, but I'm not going all the way to the bottom yet. I'm going to wait till I get more on there. And then I just keep weaving as we have done before. As we get further down, further up, excuse me, the loom, I'll really start squishing things together. And often students think that they're almost done, and then they bring it to me and I squish it down, and they're like, oh, I've got so far to go. But that's gives you a good, nice, tight weaving. So it's just part of the process. We want it to be nicely woven, nice and tight. Now you can see in this guy, I skipped right there. I made a mistake. And that happens. And you are just learning. So let yourself make mistakes. I did this one, and I've done many of them, and I made a mistake. What I like to see is those kind of skips go away. But they will happen, especially when you first start weaving. So we're not looking for perfection here. Again, we're looking for a weaving that stays together and is super cute and fun to play with. Okay, so in the next video, I'll show you what happens when we get all the way up to the tape. And then we have to start doing things a little bit different. So I will show you that in the part 4 of how to weave a stuffed creature.